Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees to order on Tuesday, May 16th at approximately 6:30 p.m. In order for everyone to hear our obviously enlightened discussions, please turn off or silence all cell phones or other noisemakers you may have. Roll call, please.
Nino.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Bell.
Here.
Turtle.
Here.
Enquist. Here. And Kudalko.
Here.
Duffy is excused.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda is published.
So moved. I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes as published.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes as published.
I'll second.
Any changes, additions, comments,
I will abstain. I was absent.
medical remarks?
Yes, there's a typo on page 7, or 8, excuse me. On line 44, it says federal and state regulations prohibit granting of more than 12 months of FMLA. It should be 12 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Good one.
Wow.
I'm thorough, Chad.
It's like a dandelion at the garage bar.
Anything else?
That's all I had.
Okay, so this will be for the minutes as amended. All in favor? Opposed? Next item, comments. Does anybody in the audience care to make a comment about a non-agenda item?
I have one.
Rob?
Rob Zaschke, Birchwood Drive, 1071. The item that was tabled from the finance meeting about discussion regarding implementation of the Premier Resort Area Tax. My understanding is that that is a potential 0.5% retail sales tax that anyone in any retail location in town would be affected the same way. The way it's worded really is a misnomer, and if there's something going on with, if it's actually true that what that really means is a potential additional tax on any retail establishment and that nobody would be singled out, maybe there could be a way that that could be rephrased so that whenever it's seen, it makes it seem like you're talking about a tax on premier resorts or an area of where premier resorts will get taxed. And if I'm incorrect, if that's really what it is.
That's just the name of it. That's what it is under the state. That's how the state names it.
Okay.
But we won't have any discussion until we actually have a discussion.
Okay. So it's safe to say then that even though that's what the name is, in reality, it's just a potential additional tax on any retail outlet in town?
Until we have that discussion, we're not going to have any discussion. There won't be any comment on it until we actually have a discussion.
Okay.
Anybody else? Correspondence.
There's one item in your packet on page 11 from Senator Tammy Baldwin, congratulating the Village of Sister Bay Marketplace Project Redevelopment Team. We received a Top Rural Development Initiative Award, and she thanks us for, congratulations on the amazing accomplishment and commends the hard work and dedication that we put into that cause.
Does anybody have any correspondence that they received that they want to add? New business items. Item number 1, public hearing and recommendation from the Utilities Committee to amend 62.112D of the Municipal Code, control of high-strength waste and septic waste concerning the recording process of breach trap inspection and cleaning reports. Consider an appropriate motion for action.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? Enlightenment? Does everybody understand what this is? I know. I'm just making sure that we understand what it is. would you like to give us an overview before we open the public hearing?
Yes, sir, indeed. So if you look at page 20 on your Zoom, this really gets to the meat and potatoes of it. Going back to 2012, there was some conversation about installation of grease interceptors at restaurants or other emitters of high-strength septage, in this case oils, fats, and greases. And after receiving some feedback from the public on the ordained method of compliance inspection, we discussed with the utility committee a very minor change, first with the staff level and later with the utilities committee, which you see reflected here. Cuts out some of the paperwork on the part of the remitter for those that have indoor grease traps. Mike, anything you want to add?
Nope, that's what it does. I mean, we went from making them bail them to letting them have the new forms, which I want, in their establishments. And we're still gonna have to go check them, because now we're getting the reports, so monthly we'll have to check these forms. But,
So that's more work on your end.
well, yes, but it's real hard to determine how much more work that actually is.
We would likely have to go do inspections anyway to ensure compliance, so it's probably good practice that we go out in the field and take a peek inside the actual interceptor and see what's going on. We will likely have interceptors that don't need to be cleaned out for 10 years at a time, mostly because they're food handling facilities. On the flip side, Mike and I have discussed a couple of interceptors at some larger facilities that may have to be cleaned every day, a couple of times a day, depending on the volume of material that goes through there.
So everybody here understand it before we open up the public hearing? That being said, I'd like to open it up for a public hearing now. For the purpose of considering amendment to 62.112D of the municipal code, control of high-strength waste and septic waste concerning the record-keeping process of grease trap inspection and cleaning reports. The purpose of this hearing is to obtain comments and input from the public on the request for a text amendment to the village's utilities code. Does anybody care to have any comments or make any testimony concerning this matter? Going once? Twice? We will not close the public hearing. Based on what we've heard or not heard, is there any other discussion from anybody on the board?
Just one question or comment. You know, Zeke saying that it may have to be cleaned once or twice a day. Obviously, we're probably a place that might be relevant, might not be. I have no idea. If you're only looking at it monthly, or is it monthly? Did you say, or weekly? Like, what's the enforcement? What's the penalty? What's the way that compliance? Basically, is my question. How are we going to comply with whatever we have to comply with?
Well, you could talk to Mike about what happens to grease inside of pipes.
I understand. I'm not trying to dodge any of it. I'm just trying to understand, like, you know, if a place needs to do it every other day, but we're checking it monthly, and when you check it, you realize that it should have been done. Like, just trying to understand the.
So talk to about what you find in the lines.
Well, I mean, obviously, if people don't clean their grease interceptors, then we find, when we televise the lines, there's grease makes it out of the lateral, gets into the main line, and solidifies, and we start to get a plug.
Yeah.
We've actually had that in places in Sister Bay where neighbors' basements have been flooded.
Have we plugged anybody?
No.
Okay, good.
You haven't. But, you know, the grease traps, there's a wide range of grease traps. If you build a new restaurant, you're crazy not to put an outside grease trap in, because then they come and clean it by law once a year, and it'll handle all your grease. There are ways to put smaller grease traps into places, like your place does not have an extremely big grease trap.
Yeah.
With that comes the consequences of having to clean it much more often.
Yeah.
We have a monthly inspection thing. We're not saying that you have to clean it only once a month, but we have to have something to base that we get in there and check
And
and
you'll
make sure they're
recommend
being
if
at
somebody
least.
if somebody needs to do it more often, that's where you're going to.
And you're gonna be the first one to know,
Yeah,
because you're gonna have problems in your
Me
internal.
personally, or?
And so, This is just a
Yeah.
means of making sure that they're doing it at least once a
Yeah,
month.
sounds like, makes sense. Thank you.
Anybody else? Now, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, consider a recommendation of the Plan Commission to adopt Resolution 355-051617, approving the development agreement and plans for Spot at 10647 Bay Shore Drive. Consider an appropriate motion for action.
Okay, so the Plan Commission has reviewed the attached development agreement and associated plans and recommends approval of them. The approval was conditional upon approval by the village's engineer. I've now had a conversation with the village's engineer. I've not received the formal write-up back up, but in conversation, the engineer has said, hey, this looks like a really good plan. There are a couple of tweaks that we're going to need to make to it. The most substantial one being the proposal to install stormwater control in 2018 as opposed to immediately prior to the issuance of a occupancy permit. There really is been an improvement there on the site. The project takes an unused blighted lower level and associated open space and restores it to use by the shopping public. This property will feature retail sales and merchandise, and I think it's a much needed addition for diversification in our downtown commercial corridor. We're looking on for approval this evening.
I will also state the Plan Commission felt it was appropriate. This is a very small business to allow some additional time to let the business operate to complete
Yep.
some of the projects that need to be completed.
Yeah. So the piece there to talk about would be waste receptacles and asphalting of the parking lot. It's written in the development agreement that as of 2019, the proposal was they would surface that parking lot in 2019. The draft of this was written in such a way that the owner of the property would install a parking lot according to whatever code is in place at that time, given that we are going through a code rewrite at the moment.
There is one thing I would like to strike,
Which page?
68.
Page 68?
Yes. And that is line 41, item number 5. I think a 24 square foot sign in that particular area is obscenely large. I talked to Zeke about it earlier.
They're basically done with the project now anyway, and this is a superfluous item from sort of a boilerplate agreement that we use across the board with all developers, so it makes sense to strike that out.
So what line, I'm sorry?
Page
That's-
68,
41.
Item 5.
yep. Section 7, item 5.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm still not finding.
Section 7,
Okay,
item
I can
5.
see it. Okay. So they're just gonna be struck?
Yes.
Any other?
Just for, I guess, a couple of future points, so we have some institutional knowledge. Just there are two historic issues there between this property and the adjoining property to the north, or abutting property to the north. One of them being, from the village's perspective, that solid waste service be able to be maintained, Jeff in the back. So they use a shared dumpster back there, drink coffee, or what was drink coffee, now analog. And the Spot facilities, that's now memorialized in the development agreement, that for the benefit of the adjoining property owner, abutting property owner, there'll be a common receptacle in place there. Also, on page 69, there is a highlighted section in this, done for that reason. Page 69, section 13. I don't know what happened there historically. No, neither has anyone been able to produce from me any sort of documentation to say, here's what happened. The village does not appear to have records on this either. So what I can tell you is that our current zoning code would require an agreement between the parties to have a 0 side foot setback. And there are structural improvements, i.e. stairs, located inside of that 6 foot side setback now. So where that becomes an issue is at some point way later on down the road, Ms. Bexel has expressed some interest in potentially building on that footprint. So there will be 2 codes that come into consideration when a potential future building goes in there. The first one will be the village's zoning code, which would allow up to a 0 side foot setback given these structural improvements. And the second would be the state building code, which may require modifications to one or both buildings for fire reasons to keep them from having a minimization of a 10-foot air gap between them.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Any other questions?
Just one quick question, page 48, the little depiction of the rain garden.
Yes, sir.
Does everything flow down into that rain garden from Husby's all the way down?
That's a pretty big word, everything. So, I
Everything
guess,
from the whole bluff on down. So.
That's-
yeah, water does flow downhill on this, but
Yeah,
not
that's-
everything from Husby's. If you look there, you can sort of see the grade map and
Yeah.
that dashed line, sort of there, that's really what's anticipated to sort of collect down there.
Okay, just for my clarification, that's all.
I guess just a question as to why this, you know, I mean, I get the water runoff and the necessity of it, but she hasn't done anything there to change her property, right? She hasn't added cement or hasn't,
Don't open that can of worms.
okay, no? Planning commission thing, I'll just, okay. Just a question.
I guess what I'll say back is, it's a question of how much. If you get the right lawyer, the lawyer's gonna say, well, you change the grade of pitch 0.00001%, and that caused $50 gajillion worth of damage downstream.
Okay.
It's going to be a huge improvement. It
Yeah,
looks fabulous.
It will be, yeah, it's great. Just seems like she has to do a lot for it, though, that's all.
She
I'm
does
saying.
have to do an awful lot for it.
Yeah.
She does?
Doesn't-
Yeah.
Yeah.
The motion would be welcome.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 3, consider motion to call the Board of Review to order and immediately adjourn upon a notice, until a notice meeting to be called to June 6, 2017, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I will call the Board of Review into order. The motion was to allow it, so now I'm calling it to order. Okay. We need a roll call. Lino here.
Roberto here.
Bell here.
Kadanko here.
Anchor's here.
Baker here?
The Board of Review is now in order. A motion to adjourn until June 6th, from 6 to 8 p.m. will be in order.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
What day of the week is June 6th?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, it's the day of the spring SPA thing. Do we all have to be here at the Board of Review for that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's bad timing.
Yeah, that's the SBA
Should've said
thing
May
with
then.
the trolley opening.
This has been set since what?
In a while.
2 dates that converge, we'll wish them the best of luck.
When did we set this?
Almost a year ago.
Yeah, almost a year.
A year ago.
Well, sorry, 6 months.
6
ago.
months.
6 months, yeah.
It was last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Item 4, discussion on the recommendation of the Personnel Committee concerning personnel handbook amendments, considering appropriate motion for action.
Okay, so the Personnel Committee examined village personnel policies in light of changes to disability insurance and long-term illness. Going back into 2015, we began a process to craft a policy manual based around the precept of short-term disability, and our insurer recommended a change in 2016 from short-term disability coverage to long-term disability coverage after an analysis of the policies and benefits in place at that time. What was not examined as a result of this change were accrual limits for all tenures of service. The Personnel Committee is recommending raising accrual limits to 40 days for all employee tenures. This will allow an employee to potentially self-fund through an accrued benefit the elimination period of 60 days for long-term disability coverage. Given that employees are also expected to take occasional sick days or vacations with PTO, The Personnel Committee is also recommending an allowance of donation of PTO days to an employee that would potentially qualify for long-term disability coverage. The max donation they are recommending per employee that donates would be 24 hours. Additionally, the Personnel Committee is recommending that the village continue to fund health and other benefits during the leave period. This is potentially 4 weeks longer than the PTO period of 40 days.
On page 90, line 19, I have a recollection that we talked about he or she must elect to either go on Medicare and/or continue, because most likely you have to sign up anyway. And so, do we need to add "and"? I thought we talked about that.
I think so. Was this from the last meeting?
Mhm.
I wasn't at the last meeting, but we did talk about that.
It wasn't.
You know, because you're going to be penalized if you at least don't sign up for it.
Right.
But you can still sign up for it, and you can still have the village coverage.
So I
So
think
it's,
if you keep going down there, where it says if an employee is older than his or her spouse, as soon as he or she becomes Medicare eligible, he or she must elect to either go on Medicare or continue his or her existing health insurance coverage. If you really want the and/or, we can certainly insert it in there, but I think it's covered with that sentence.
but is that really letting the employee know
It was,
on line 19 that it's possibly both? I know what we talked about, I know what it says, but I want to make sure that when the employees are given the new handbook, if it's adopted,
So
that they understand specifically what that means.
let me clarify, because that's a little bit beyond what I consider the scope of the conversation, at least what I'm now perceiving you to say. So what I think you're saying is you have an employee who turns 65 and enrolls in Medicare, and then we would continue to pay for some sort of benefit, health insurance that would act as a supplementary. Is that what you're saying?
We talked about that they would have to be on both.
Okay.
I don't know legally what's supplementary, who's first, who's second.
Not to jump in, but this is not the conversation I recall. What I recall from the last meeting was that an employee turned 65, we asked if they go on Medicare. And that's what's written into our
Right.
policy. We don't do any kind of supplement. When their spouse turns 65, if they are already 65, that spouse goes on to Medicare. If the spouse turns 65 before the employee, the spouse, now I'm losing myself, but
Yep.
the spouse goes on to Medicare. The employee has coverage until they turn 65, at which time they go on to Medicare.
Mhm.
So whenever the employee turns 65, that employee goes on to Medicare.
The
But
part of the conversation that I recall is that becomes the employee's election at age 65, meaning they can continue to maintain village health insurance benefits if available, or elect to go on Medicare. So that's the part I don't remember.
Okay, aren't we, I think we're missing something, because we talked about this
Yeah.
at finance too.
Maybe that's what I'm remembering,
Right,
finance,
right. I
not
think-
personnel.
Right, so I think you remember finance. What we talked about at finance was if the employee had a younger spouse, the employee became 65 and went on Medicare, they could elect to continue village coverage until such time as their spouse became 65 and eligible
right.
for
That's-
Medicare.
you're right, that's what I was thinking.
Right.
Because
Yep.
the spouse wouldn't be eligible for
Correct.
insurance if the
Yeah,
other
he
Correct.
is
Right.
supposed to have coverage.
But I want to make sure that they're understanding that they probably still, that it still is an and/or, because they still need to sign up for Medicare at 65, because if they don't, they will be penalized.
Yep.
That's why I'm thinking,
Yep, I'm getting where you're going. We need to ask
Yes.
we need to ask a question of our insurer, if that's even an option. Meaning, can they continue to be insured? I just don't know the answer, maybe you do.
Well, it has to do with credible coverage.
Yeah.
If the village is considered, if the village healthcare is considered credible coverage under
And
Medicare,
they're disallowed in the Medicare.
then they
Right.
can continue on the village without having the Medicare without penalization.
Right.
If it's not considered credible coverage, then they have to take Medicare. They could still continue to carry the coverage under village for spouse or for family.
If available.
Right.
So that's the piece that we don't know of, is that the spouse doesn't have an employee relationship, they have a dependent relationship with the village. So what we could do is leave it stand as is, and then when we encounter it, because I would anticipate, rather than us investing 80 hours in researching all this, that.
No, I don't want you to
that
do
this is gonna
that.
change with the current federal status of things.
We can put the and/or in there,
Yep.
knowing what the intent is.
I mean, it does say
The intent is to,
if an employee is older than his or her spouse, as soon as he or she becomes Medicare eligible, he or she must elect to either go on Medicare or continue his or
Yep.
her existing healthcare coverage. It will only continue until such time as the employee and or his or her spouse become Medicare eligible. And it is in there spelled out, pretty close.
It's a small word, I know.
So why don't we add?
Fine, I'll let it go.
Where did you want the or?
No, I wanted the and.
Where did you want the and?
Line 19.
With the or.
I'm sorry, Medicare and/or.
Line 19.
I just remember we had a long conversation about and/or. But it's fine, it can just stand. It's okay. I don't need to waste more time on that.
The question to ask is, and I don't, as I understand it, there won't be any problem, is to make sure, or ask the question that our insurance will allow Medicare continuation.
Okay.
So,
It's definitely a good question to know, because this will happen eventually, right?
Yep.
yep. Okay, any other questions? I have one, hold on. I just want to make sure I understand this. At the very end of on page 79, the board report, the last paragraph. Additionally, the Personnel Committee is recommending the village continue to fund health and/or benefits during the leave period. This is potentially 4 weeks longer than the PTO period of 40 days. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, sir. So go to page 87, line 38. I'm sorry, line 35 through 38. So it essentially states, while an employee is on leave, the village will continue the employee's health benefits during the leave period at the same level and the same conditions as if the employee had continued to work. So effectively, the proposal was to maintain health coverage during FMLA.
Okay, so it's during the family
So-
leave measure?
Yes, sir.
I'm confusing this with the disability.
Okay. So day number one, somebody gets in a car crash, and they would begin to use their PTO on a workday basis.
Okay, but,
Yep. Let's go calendar day.
okay, so somebody becomes disabled
Mhm.
because of an incident.
Mhm.
How long a period of time till the long-term disability kicks in?
60 days,
Okay. And our PTO up to this point in time only allows them,
depending on where they are on the calendar. If you all approve this amendment, it will carry them the full
No.
60 days.
currently, it's 40 days?
No, sir. So it depends on where they are on the years of service.
Okay.
So for a brand-new employee, it would cover them 20 workdays, i.e. 30 days towards their disability.
Okay.
So under the proposal, all employees will now be covered
For
once
any-
they've accrued the
For any
benefit.
gap there is up to the
Up to
long-term
long-term
disability.
disability.
stipend. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, I have another question. The paragraph above, the max donation they are recommending for an employee that donates is 24 hours. So on a daily basis, that would be 3 days.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did we get into rate discussions or rate issues, or are we just talking hours?
It was a straight hour per hour donation.
Irrespective of any rates or issues?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, that's all I got. Any other questions? Not a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 5, review and discussion on the 2016 village financials audit, PID audit. Consider motion to approve the 2016 financials.
So this is an item that some of you just sat through as part of our finance committee meeting with Amber Drewski and Elizabeth McMasters at Shank. There are a number of items outlined in the board report. In particular, attention was paid to the TID and financial implications within the TID. And with that, I'll ask Tasha to say a little bit about what she just said an hour ago.
Okay. I'm just gonna go through some of the financial impacts that I laid out in the board report. The auditors drew a lot of attention to the decrease in the unassigned fund balance. The unassigned fund balance change year over year was a negative $52,913. Village policy states the village will maintain a fund balance of 25% of general fund expenditures. The village consistently applies their fund balance to the next year's budget, and over time this decreases our fund balance. So we need to be more conscious when we are budgeting of what is happening to our fund balance and how much we are budgeting, so that we are not applying budget year over year. In the capital projects fund, the fund balance stands at $1.228 million. However, a little over $1 million of this has been advanced to the TID. So the actual cash in the CIP fund is a little over $200,000. There's an extreme difference there. The expenditures in the TID are basically pulling money from other funds. There's an advance from the CIP, there's an advance from the utility, an advance from Marina, and an advance from the general fund. The TID has not to date generated enough revenue to meet its expenditures. The thought process here with the TID is that we are essentially done after 2017 doing large capital projects, public capital projects within the TID. So only private projects will continue to go, and we want those to continue. Those raise our tax increment and, you know, bring us more revenue. But the public expenditures should stop after this year. Therefore, we'll generate more tax increment and hopefully generate enough cash to start paying those other funds back. Just to cover a couple of other things. There are other ways to generate revenue within the TID. We could look at land sales. Any grants that we receive, such as the beach grant, will change that cash balance within the TID. And obviously any increment increases. We have a TID forecast that we look at every year, and we're going to continue to revise that and revisit that with the board and the finance committee. The TID annual report, our audit report, will serve as our annual report. We will be convening a session of the joint review board. This is part of new reporting requirements for the state. So we will have that meeting before July 1st so that we can submit our report to the state and meet all of our requirements. The utility continues to perform well and be pretty well managed. We do want to watch our cash flows within the utility and get a better handle on our capital projects and our future expenditures and our forecasting. So we are going to make some changes there. In the marina, we produced operating income of $177,000. The net loss or net change in fund balance was a net loss of $38,000. In 2016, for the first time in quite a while, the marina generated enough cash flow to cover operating expenses, the tax equivalent payment or the pilot payment, and their debt service. So really, the marinas really stepped things up. The management letter addressed some concerns about cash receiving and depositing, which management is addressing. In summary, as with all of our financials, we need to continue to monitor our fund balances year over year in order to meet the minimum fund balance policy for cash flow purposes. We want to watch what we're advancing to other funds, particularly in advances to the TID. The auditors have talked about ways to generate more cash flow. We've talked internally about ways to generate more cash flow. One of the things we have talked about is adding more debt to our levy. Currently, we are only adding 1/10 of our debt to our levy, and our debt payments continue to increase. So we could add this on an incremental basis rather than adding it all at once. That would be a really large tax increase. But just ways to pay for that debt year to year. Village staff are aware of the concerns with the auditors had related to cash balances and fund balance percentages. We are working to identify savings opportunities and ways to generate new revenues. And we're addressing the depositing concerns at the marina. So that's an hour-and-a-half meeting in a nutshell.
Thank you, Tasha. I guess I'll just make, have a couple of follow-up comments. Anybody else have any questions of Tasha or Zeke, feel free to ask. As most of you are aware, we've just completed several years of projects where we moved funds around, in and out of things, et cetera. We now have most of that complete. We still have the parking lot to go, but not much more after on the public side. So those funds should start to coalesce back in. When we talk about the unassigned fund balance, we have used that over the last couple of years to not increase taxes more than a certain amount. So we've done that consciously as a finance committee and as a board to use some of those funds to do that. The unassigned fund balance is a policy that was set, I think, 5 years ago. I think it was 5 years ago we started. And the idea was to build, that's the rainy day fund. And the policy asked for it to be somewhere between 20 and 25% of our operational budget. Okay? And right now we're at about 15%. Sometimes we're above it, sometimes we're below it. It depends upon what is going on. So we've used that as a, I call it a smoothing fund, depending upon what was going on operationally with capital. So we took, you should only use it for capital, so we used it for capital projects, so we didn't have to expend operational funds to do that. And as a result, we were able to put a limit on the tax increases. So that was a conscious decision that we've made on past board. So I don't want you to get the impression that we're not at 25%, the sky's falling. That's not the case at all. We've made those conscious decisions to do that and had what we thought were good reasons why at the time.
Just to add on to what Dave was saying, no, the sky is not falling. But with that fund balance, part of that fund balance allows us, it's our cash flow for the year. So we get a good chunk of our tax payments in January for the year, but then we don't get another round until August. So we use that money, and it runs a little thin come June and July. And we used to have CIP funds that we could fall back on and transfer those if we needed to meet that short-term cash flow. But because we no longer have those funds, we don't have that available to us. So as fund balances decrease across the board, or as cash decreases across the board, that creates more of a cash flow problem, which is, I think, why the auditors were more concerned about the fund balance than they had been in the past.
And our next tax deposit will be in August.
And yep.
It should also be noted that we've got a $250,000 approximate grant outstanding right now that, that's a big chunk back in as soon as we can clear that. Also, you'll see as part of the budget amendments that are proposed this evening, we used to book land sales, and Tasha and I had a pretty spirited conversation about, is that a good idea or a bad idea? And Tasha was able to convince me that, no, let's don't book land sales as a thing, because
It makes me very nervous.
Yeah, it's not a done deal until it's done. So I think
That's for sure.
we're doing everything we can to be really conservative on the revenue side and very liberal on the expenditure side in terms of the estimations that we produce. And as a consequence, you heard our auditors say, if you were at that meeting, that you continue to have these fallbacks into the unassigned fund balance. That's really where a big chunk of that goes.
Any questions for Tasha or Zeke on that?
And as you go through the financials, if you ever have any questions, just come see me. We can have a discussion.
I'll make the motion we approve the 2016 financials as presented.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 6, discussion regarding resolution 354-51617. Resolution amending the 2017 village budget, including the following specific funds: debt service, general government, capital projects, tax increment, district, and marina. Consider an appropriate motion for action.
I suppose rather than.
Page 184.
84. Rather than going through these line by line, they were included in your packet. I believe all of these have somehow been addressed by some committee or board action earlier on. This is really a cleanup for us, so if you have any specific questions, we'll be glad to answer those. Otherwise, we'll look for a motion to approve.
The washer and dryer, ridiculous amount of money. I asked Tasha, is it a front loader? Does anybody know?
Amy?
No.
Amy, do you want to talk about the washer and dryer for a second?
It was, it is a commercial grade washer and dryer, and we did get a discount off. I did research on it before we did purchase it, and he gave us, CLS gave us about a $700 discount off of it from what other places were charging for the same unit.
Okay.
I think when we had discussions last year about the washer and dryer, we did expect to spend about $5,000, so.
Anything else?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 7, consider recommendation of Plan Commission to adopt Resolution 356-051617, approving the development agreement amendment with Good Samaritan Society, i.e. STAN, at 10554 Applewood Drive. Consider the perfect motion for action. Starts on page 198.
Yes, sir. So this is really just sort of a two-part item. One is a cleanup, which is on page 1, I'm sorry, beginning on page 200. It's the original development agreement, and then followed up by an amendment beginning on page 213. So they originally had a date of completion on phase 2 of 6/1 of 17. They're now asking to push that out until 7/1 of 18. And included in your packet are plans beginning on page 215 for that project, which was reviewed by the Plan Commission. Effectively, what they're doing is demoing their current assisted living area and adding in a skilled nursing facility. Creating a little enclave in the center.
I have, as long as we have to make an amendment to this development agreement, early on I had many concerns with the project. Can't say enough about what this means to our community and the services that they hold there, but some of you will remember, some of you weren't here, that I had many complaints about the lighting and the lack of dark sky and how it personally impacted my property and the light coming through into my backyard and into my home. And I asked Zeke, because I couldn't really figure out from the drawings exactly what part, of the complex that we were talking about. And it seemed to me, what he showed me, that it's certainly more internal.
Right here. This is getting demoed out.
And I'm wondering, is there going to be any additional parking in that area where they're going to put in the same amount of lighting where it's already like an airport out there right now? And secondly, are they going to blast? I called and complained when they first started a couple of years ago that I thought my windows were going to break in my house because of the blasting. They did not have a permit to blast. They did not notify the neighbors.
I remember all that.
I know Zeke was new, that's all I'll say.
Welcome to Sister Bay.
And because of all of that, after I've been in my house for 15 years without a crack on my wall, I have cracks everywhere because of their project, which now will cost me a lot of money to repair. So those are my questions and concerns on them doing phase 2, and is there anybody that would agree that some of these things need to be addressed? And
So what lighting or parking issues are there?
Nothing is proposed for this phase of the project. They took care of that as part of phase one. So everything you see back there will continue to be there, and we addressed that at previous meetings in terms of a dimmer on one of them. I don't think from a neighbor standpoint that really addressed everybody's concerns. There is quite a bit of light back there, but it's also an institutional facility. If you were to call Chief Hecht in and ask his opinion about how does this aid you in doing your job, and you have to go pick somebody up at 2 a.m., he'd probably tell you it's pretty handy to have that there. Also with staff coming and going 24 hours a day, that it's just a standard for a medical institution.
Overkill. I'm not saying that they
Sure.
can't have lighting. I mean, the pole, in my opinion, the poles are too high for the intensity of light. And we have talked multiple different times on a dark skies initiative. So if there's no parking and there's no additional lighting, I just wanted to raise that, that's fine, you know, and doesn't have to be addressed. But then the blasting again concerns me.
So we run into this pretty regular in the village when someone blasts, and it's I think a perennial favorite of Mike's when someone blasts because his phone starts ringing, my phone starts ringing. They're required under state statute to notify everyone. Mike's 300 feet, 300 feet or 300 yards?
300.
300 feet. Yeah, I believe it's 300 feet of a project limit. So we know from seismographic data, which is also compelled to be recorded by the state, how much energy is being transmitted into the ground, which way that energy radiates. It can look at those things. So what I can tell you is that when blasting occurs, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I can tell you what the science indicates. We get calls from citizens who say this slab in my driveway has cracked, or the slab in my garage has cracked, or we have cracks in walls. Whether that is a perceptual thing, that people hear the boom and then they pay attention to what's going on, or whether the boom occurs and that energy is actually transmitted, I would tell you the science indicates that it's not energy transmission that's causing that. While I'm not saying in every case that can't be what occurs, certainly not here.
I don't believe the science takes into account the structure of
Sure.
rock within Door County.
Sure.
I mean, I think just about everybody here at the table has their own blasting issues. I had 2 windows replaced. They had been cracked. I had them reglazed. 5 days later, there was blasting, and they were cracked again. Now, was that because of the blasting, or was it just because 5 days they should crack on their own? I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't have the science behind it.
Sure.
You
But
just paying
there
more
is-
attention.
There is, when the village had the road construction done, Vinton or a subcontractor or something
Paskey.
came around and videotaped everything because of the work that they were going to be doing. And it is currently not in our zoning code or a policy that the village has, but certainly I would recommend that we have that conversation at Plan Commission, that if there's going to be blasting, that, I'm sorry, that there needs to be some expense incurred by the people blasting in that radius, because the people affected by it should not have to foot the bill for their project.
So it's a really good point. The question becomes how far out? So when we talk about this project that occurred in the downtown, they followed those same state guidelines of 300 feet. And we still had one home that swore up and down they received damage from. And by the way, we did video the inside of that home, and the video showed no cracking. At least we couldn't tell it on video. The gentleman swore up and down those cracks came as a result of, you know, those blasts. If you go out beyond 300 feet, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, I'm simply saying that at some point, the mass of structures in a given area, there's some diminishing return to doing all of that. So if you're out 300 feet and we require private development projects to video things and then to review that video, that might be really good. What do you do about the guy who's at 310 feet on the property line and he has a complaint?
That's why I think maybe we should have a conversation.
I agree.
Okay.
Yep.
I grew up near Corey as a kid. You know, they obviously had more money than the $100,000 houses in the neighborhood. But a lot of cracked foundations never got repaired. So it's definitely something to be concerned about.
Sure.
Dave just had bad luck with windows.
Oh, well, if you want to talk about the quarry.
Yeah, oh, I've been there. I used to play in the
Ask
quarry
about
though
the stuff
illegally,
falling
so
off
it
my
was
shelf
fun.
in the store.
I would say this, if we're gonna head down that path, we should amend that development agreement in such a fashion that we compel videoing of all structures within X many feet, pick a number, of that particular project site. And I can't tell you from looking at this if blasting's required or not.
Just Denise's house and do a radius.
I would like to protect my neighbors also.
Well, you'll get a couple of them.
Yeah.
So, we don't know if blasting is going to be required. Can we put something in here that if blasting is required, notification in accordance with current state requirements?
Well, it's also under zoning code.
Yeah,
Notification required.
at least get that in, and then we'll have the discussion. and look
I mean,
at-
is this pertinent that we,
Nate, what do you know about this? It's gotta be some technology that you have an advantage.
Well, I mean, when I think about it, is the further away you get, you're having such a minimal amount of energy once you
Yep.
get, it's what, based on the cube?
Yep, no sphere.
Yes, so it really doesn't, you hit, I mean, I'm thinking about it, it looks like, kinda like radio waves to me, it's energy.
Yeah.
But
It's
it's
transfer, so it's-
4 pi
But the
squared.
science up here is different. It's like water is being incompressible. If you have a piece of bedrock that's 1,000 feet long, you can feel the same thing here as you feel here. Just like 1,000 feet of water. Okay? And that science doesn't take that into account generally under the state statute, as currently defined, is my understanding.
So each material will transmit energy differently, there's no doubt about that, right? So a granite would be much more dense than a limestone, and, sand would be different than, limestone sill.
Right. So when you have unique geology, it's very different.
And add into that fractures, right, so it's an
Right.
imperfect transmission.
so my question is it pertinent that we, adopt this tonight? Can it wait to see what wording you come up with? What is it that you're looking for?
What I would look for is authorization for staff to execute a development agreement with an amendment that states, as you guys will, Janelle will read it back to you, that the village requires videoing of all properties within 300 feet of the property boundary of the subject development site, meaning the way they'll pull that map is they'll perimeter this whole property, and then it'll go 300 feet buffered out from that.
I mean, and this may not impact anybody because it's more centrally located.
I would tell you the safe thing for us to do is buffer that whole property and do 300 feet around the scanned campus,
Okay.
not 300 feet around the blasting site. And that's been one of the problems that's come up in the past, is they've done notification of properties within 300 feet of the perimeter of a property that's undergoing blasting. So if you take Keith Garrett's site out there, same kind of situation, blasting's occurring in the dead middle of the property, and somebody who's 750 feet away is saying, oh my God, it's shaking stuff off the walls. Well, if we push that out even further, then it's just gonna accommodate more people.
Okay.
If nothing else, they'll get a letter in the mail that says, hey, you should be on notice that on this date at this time, we're gonna be blasting.
Okay, so then if Janelle's working on that motion right now, and we approve this, may I ask that you share that wording with me before you
Sure.
execute it? Just as a courtesy?
Sure. I actually was hoping we nailed the wording down here. And then it's just in the record.
Can you, can you measure on that?
Yep.
Okay, when they were doing the blasting, was that for the pond?
The pond, the roadway, and the water and sewer back there. Yes, there was quite a bit that occurred.
Okay, can you measure from my house?
Sure. You're 2285?
2285.
So I'm 301. What's that?
301 feet.
So Denise, I'm gonna guess that to your homes from pond blasting 213 feet which side the water and sewer lines are on? Far side,
Far towards the bees.
right there.
About,
You're looking at 166 feet. So it's not very far from where you were last time. And yeah, it probably did rock your house.
Yeah.
It did.
Pretty good there.
So what's the recourse? So that happens, they blast there, Denise has got a crack in her wall.
Oh, there's more than one. Nails popped out. My
So
cabinets fell
what-
from the ceiling.
What happens there? Does it become a civil thing between her, a private thing? There's nothing?
I just fix it myself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I understand that, the pragmatic approach, but.
And that's where the purpose of, when we did downtown, the purpose of the videotape was the contractor wanted to verify before and after. But we didn't.
I think they helped our foundation, we leveled out a little bit more.
Denise, to look at this, just again, distance to your property from
Yeah, I don't think it'll, from there I'll be impacted.
from general area, you're looking 1,000 feet-ish along in there, 950.
Okay,
It's
so-
principle and it's the point
No, I
of
agree
moving
with you.
forward.
I made a joke, but I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I'll also tell you that if they do blasting of the magnitude that you're talking about for a foundation there, that they're gonna have internal structural issues to their existing structure, so it's in their own best interest to really
Not to.
minimize all that. Smaller charges, more drilling.
Okay.
Okay, so Janelle, can you tell us what we're talking about so far?
That the village board passes and adopts resolution number 356, which approves an amendment to the development agreement with SCAND on the condition that a provision shall be added which states that if blasting is required before and after, in quotes, videotaping of all adjoining properties within 300 feet of the SCAND campus shall be conducted.
Videotaping and mailed notice shall be delivered to.
Okay,
Okay,
so,
Did you have perimeter in there? Or scanned campus?
She said the scanned campus.
Okay, that's good enough, okay.
Okay, so I've got before and after videotaping of all adjoining properties within 300 feet of the SCAND campus shall occur and notice shall be mailed. Is that what
Yes.
you want? To all of those property owners by the blasting company?
Yes.
so I don't disagree in concept. I may disagree in function. Okay? It's one thing to notify 300 feet before the blasting's actually going to occur. If you take a look at 300 feet from the campus,
I don't disagree, sir. I'm
it's
merely
very
giving
different.
options.
And the number of properties that they're going to have to expend funds on to videotape
Would be fairly massive.
would be massive.
It's gonna be all the hidden maples. Well, let's just do this, just to. show
What
them.
about this? Is there a compromise to be had? Because I understand your point, Dave, also. And we don't need to be ridiculous. Can we extend it from the blasting point instead of 300 feet to 400 feet?
Let's just take a look at what that is. What does 300 properties look like? And the answer is 3 pages worth of mountain labels.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Right.
How did
So,
you do that?
Yeah, that was
I've got
very
that
cool.
magic wand that,
I want that
Very
magic wand.
I've been on that
I can
site
show
many
you.
times, I didn't know you could do that.
I do that all the time.
County GIS.
Do you?
Yeah, you can tell based on like water
yeah,
frontage and all that great. It's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, please show me, Nate.
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point, now if I go back and do that same thing again, and here's a glitch in Door County mapping.
Probably a county.
It's just mildly inconvenient. It's not the end of the world. But for that actual structure to be demoed by 300 feet, they don't notify anybody except the phone company across the street and their own resale store.
What about 400 feet if you do it from the blast site?
You can kind of see where it's
Yeah,
not going to
you're
be
out,
much more.
well, yeah, I mean, you're gonna end up coming out right here, you may end up touching a couple of those properties, including yours, but
Yeah, but that's not on my house. My house would not be encompassed in that circle,
Yeah.
another 100 feet.
Is it the structure or the property line that?
I just outlined the structure there, but I don't know if they're gonna need to blast for a foundation, so that may maneuver a little.
No, what I'm saying is how the 300 feet is determined. Is it to the property line or is it to the foundation, or to the
Right here,
structure?
this orange is what I did. and
No,
this
that's not his
No,
question.
No, like Denise's property line or Denise's house is where does the 300 feet have to be
This is a
measured?
structure. It's
Structure,
how- It's
structure.
how it's done under the state
Okay.
stuff, so the structure has to be within, not just the property.
And if the state is 300, is that what we have to abide by?
You can make something more restrictive as far as I know. You're entering into a development agreement, that's a contract with the developer, so you're not doing it by ordinance or by right, you're doing it by contract.
And this may not affect absolutely anybody. I just want to start, what does 400 feet look like? Still nothing.
So, the only structure that's impacted again is the telephone company.
Now, and this is phase 2, so there's also a phase 3 coming up, right? So
There's-
this would also apply to phase 3?
Well, phase 3, they would have to come back, get,
Another amendment,
Another amendment.
likely anyway.
But if they don't, if they,
I could go in at the appropriate place and insert it as an amendment to the original document, not just as an addition to the amendment that would apply to all future phases. So if you look at, what's likely to occur, part of their plan, as I understand it, is Villa Drive initially gets extended all the way around into that, and then the Meadows builds out little condos over there.
I mean, I'm fine to changing it to that, instead of the campus or the perimeter from the blast site 400 feet from there. Not really going to affect anybody except the phone company in this particular instance, but it's the first way that we start addressing this in all development agreements.
So if I may, I would say let's refer the long-term version of this back to our village's engineers and seek a recommendation for them on what may be a reasonable footage to protect properties based on blasting. To Dave's point, you can have 2 pounds of explosive in the ground and that does one thing, or you can have 50 pounds of explosive
Okay.
in the ground. That's
And
a
so maybe
whole
there
other
should be
animal.
different criteria
Right.
then? Okay. Okay.
so I'm good with this. No
Okay.
problem with that. But we should refer it to village engineers and get some additional information back and then look at changing our zoning code to apply. Anything else, I always try and look for the balance of undue burden, either the property owner or the developer. For SCAN to have to do at least 60 homes to videotape. seems-
It's not necessary.
Okay, so now you had mentioned something about light pollution, is that anything or no?
I don't think so, because Zeke said that there's no additional parking, so doubtful that there would. And that's something else that in the future I'll be bringing up in development agreements about lighting, that if we determine that it's not appropriate, that they have to change it. I'm not talking necessarily about scanned, but, yeah.
Okay, so what's the motion that somebody's gonna make, you know?
Okay. That the village board passes and adopts resolution number 356, which which approves an amendment to the development agreement with SCAN on the condition that a provision shall be added which states that if blasting is required before and after videotaping of all adjoining properties within 400 feet from the blast site shall occur. Prior to the time that videotaping is actually done, notice shall be mailed to all those property owners by the blasting company. How many of these notice do you want?
Mike,
Want to say properties or structures?
structures. Structures.
Okay, from the.
Shall be no
well-
less than or in accordance with state statutes.
Well, I've got videotaping of all adjoining properties.
Structures.
Structures?
Structures.
Okay. Structures within 400 feet and prior to the time that videotaping is done, notice shall be mailed to all affected property owners in
Yeah.
accordance with the state statutes. Want it that way?
No. Notice shall be mailed to owners of structures within 400 feet of the blasting
We've got
site.
that already. Okay, before and after videotaping of all adjoining structures within 400 feet from the blast site shall occur.
Okay,
Prior to the time that videotaping is done, notice shall be mailed to all those
owners
property
of
owners.
structures,
Pardon?
owners of structures located within 400 feet of the site of blasting. And then, let's add something that says,
In accordance with state regulations.
yeah, and in accordance with state regulations. That work?
Perfect. Step one.
Who would like to make that motion?
Good idea.
So moved.
For a second?
Second?
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Item number 8, consider motion to confirm President Leo's appointments of committee, commission, and board members. We all have the list that was in the packet. Pretty much what everybody asked for, I believe, with minor exceptions. So what we're going to approve tonight is the committees as far as trustees are concerned. There is a second list of citizen members for commission appointments. The only two that we'll be considering tonight will be Don Howard and Marge Grutzma for the Plan Commission. All the other citizen members will be done at the next meeting. I have not been able to contact everybody to reaffirm their wishes, so as soon as that's done, we'll confirm that.
So you can do this by consent agenda, or by acclamation, the list that's presented, unless you want to read them out one by one.
Let's
Oh,
not
And
do
just
gosh.
attach it to the minutes.
No, so we're just gonna attach to the minute.
Okay.
So somebody will make that motion.
So moved.
For a second.
Second?
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're going to,
Chad, we're together in parks.
I didn't submit my request, so I got seconded a couple times. Love you.
we're not gonna go in closed session. At the moment, we will continue to do the closed session last. Report on county activities, number 12, report on county activities, County Supervisor Dave Williams. We have not met. Since our last board meeting, we're kind of in between because we got changed around on our dates a little bit. So there won't be any county board report for me today unless you have some questions about something you may have seen or heard. The county board will be meeting next week. Item 13, review of financial statements, consideration of a motion to approve the monthly bills. It's 2:35. So I'll get things started. I'll make a motion to pay the monthly bills in the amount of $404,047.81.
I will second that.
Discussion or items? Oh, you had your questions already taken.
I did, I went into the office today, so I'm quiet.
Anybody else?
I have nothing.
All in favor?
Aye.
It all looked legal.
Report by the village administrator on village activities and projects.
Will you make a note for Spot on engineering fees?
Okay.
We need to get those taken care of before we issue permits. Okay, so we're getting on page 243. So Harbor View, no new developments up there other than they continue to pile some dirt up so they can eventually engage in some grading. I did have a conversation with Mr. Goki last week. If you recall back to our development agreement on all properties that we've sold to developers that were formerly under village control, we've placed some kind of a minimum additional value assessment payment on them. The first of which triggered was Mr. Goki's site over on Mill Road. He didn't quite hit the December deadline. He had some hangups with state plan review. So he wrote us a check for $12,000 to make up for revenue that would have occurred in the TIF if he had built on the timeline that we'd asked him to build on. So glad to report that project's underway and moving ahead. However, the other project that we have one of these on that's coming up is the old school site in 2018. So the general question that he asked me was, do you think the village trustees would be amenable to an amendment to the development agreement, changing the values around? So we have some pretty modest final improvement values inserted in his original development agreement and some fairly modest penalties inserted there. So it's about $1,800 per lot per year cumulative going forward from 2018. So his assertion was, well, look, I'm probably going to build a $400,000 or $500,000 house, and it says here that I've got to build $175,000 houses. Would the village board consider trading that out? I'm not asking you to make a decision tonight. I'm just letting you know that that's sort of where things are for the moment.
Has he built, is there any been one lot sold up there?
I believe he's got one lot under contract. And I know he's had a conversation in the last couple of weeks with another party about one.
And when he sells that, he obviously enters a development agreement with that party?
No.
Not at all?
Well, he would enter a contract.
Will he just sell these lots without anybody
Yep.
doing anything?
Yep, he's still got to install water and sewer and a roadway up there. That's a private roadway. So that portion of infrastructure development has not gone in. So he'll need to do that at least commiserately with any private property construction.
Right, I mean, probably won't put that in until
He closes
Sells
one.
4 of them or 5
Yeah.
of them maybe.
Well, no, he'll have to,
As
it's
soon
with the
as,
first
as
one.
soon as somebody wants to build a house, he's got to.
You got to put in water sewer road.
So I buy a lot there,
When
Can
you're
I-
ready to build.
can I
sewer and
instigate
water's
him?
gotta go in.
He's
Yeah.
legally bound to.
Well, he's going to have a hard time selling you a house if you don't have a toilet that flushes.
Yeah, true, true.
So,
Let's get you a lot up there, Zeke. Get it going.
working on it. So Stony Ridge, we're coming up on a deadline with Mr. Garrett for the 25th. I have had some conversations with him and representatives of the Bank of Luxembourg, as well as our engineers and attorney on the status of the project. We're going to have some conversation with you in closed session about this item as well. But at any rate, I did a site visit today. Foundations are poured on 2 of the apartment buildings. Rough grading is in for the roadways. Water and sewer lines are all in. I'm looking for Mike to nod his head to make sure Mike, thought so. Anything there, and storm sewer has been managed on the site. So we're looking for roadways to go in and restoration work to take place. Sister Bay Marketplace coming down here this
Can I ask a
evening.
question?
Oh, yes, sir.
So with everything that's done to this point, how far away is he from being able to lay asphalt?
If he wanted to put roads up there inside of 2 or 3 weeks, he probably could have it all done in 2 or 3 weeks. Roads done.
So it's not like there's 6 months of work to be done, right?
No. I mean, everything's just rough graded in for it.
Okay.
So Sister Bay Marketplace, site work's almost complete. As I was coming around to the fire station this evening, I was seeing the last of the black dirt going. It looks like there's still just a hair bit more sidewalk to lay along the new parking lot site. As I understand it, they're planning over the next 2 weeks to work on finishing out the parking lot. One follow-up item that we will take care of as a part of the existing financial authorizations and some cost savings, thanks to Joe Fellhofer and company on the trash enclosures. We really need to create a pedestrian linkage over the Sister Bay Bowl out of that parking lot. The grades are really steep for somebody to climb up the sides of our current grading setup, so we've had a conversation with some contractors about installing some steps back there just to keep everything connected together. That'll be an additional expense that comes up. This evening, you will consider an offer on Lot 5 and the secondary on Lot 4. I've gotten preliminary plans from J.J. Johnson on Lot 2 and 3. It really looks similar to what he has across the street of the creamery in terms of architectural style. Henry Isaacson did the work on that. Henry Isaacson's doing the work on this one as well. Mill Road West, third story was going up last time I rode past there, so they're moving ahead on that. Pretty good clip. Our termination date for that one was 2018, so it looks like he'll meet that deadline for final completion of construction. Spot was an action item this evening. Topawat Kombucha will have a public hearing next week on a CSM and zoning petition for 10438 Orchard Drive. The plan there is to expand their brewing operation possibly later this year. Tasha mentioned earlier permit fees. Things have been pretty crazy for us in the office, building inspector and Mike, in terms of just keeping up with demand on these projects. Each one of these projects represents lots and lots and lots of hours for us, from the start of initial consultation where we have to walk them through the zoning code, utilities and building and everything else, on through to final completion. So we're excited to see the revenues up and to do the work. Have a lot of new staff joining us this year. If you happen to see folks out with yellow on, we're trying to coordinate that with our marina and with our parks department, our utilities guys, and the SBAA, so that as our visitors are coming here, they sort of pattern on. If you see yellow, you can ask a friendly face a question. And then lastly, the trolley is going to be here next Wednesday. So we'll get that down to Green Bay so they can get it logoed up, and then we'll have it back up here hopefully June 6th to do everything at the SBAA event. I will mention that so far we are pretty soundly over on the revenues that we've taken in, but there are also going to be some correlated expenses that are elevated. And once more, we hope to be able to land this within the budgeted tolerance that we had for revenues and expenses. I'm going to move this baton along and let you guys hear from our department heads this evening. Joe Fellhofer, anything you want to share with the board from Parks?
The disc golf, E and the 9 are in, and there's actually somebody who was out there today already playing it. Like Zeke said, the trolley, we have to put up the post, and the posts are ready, and we marked them and called diggers and that, and they'll be putting in. There's just a lot of things going on, here and there at the beach. Everything's just trying to get everything put together and for the season.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
I will mention I've gotten lots of comments, positive comments about the new street signs, that people can actually read some of them again. So,
Good.
that's a good thing.
Like they said to you, Dave, 90% of them are up. There's a couple that we need to work on because they're not in good shape, the old ones, but they're doing up.
And the beach looks awesome with that fencing going. Joe, I talked to Zeke earlier today, and I made a request, and I know at our last Parks meeting, you were talking about you will do the very best that you can without your two top guys and with new help. But when I was walking through Waterfront Park, I noticed that there are some benches that are so distressed that need a good pressure washing. And I was hoping that, the really bad ones could get done sooner rather than later.
Could you find it in your heart to get us a pressure washer?
Do you not have a pressure washer?
It's a pressure washer, but if it wants to be, sometimes it doesn't want to be a pressure washer.
Is it just a hose?
No.
How old is it? Is it pretty?
Very old.
Well, see, and my father, I would give you my father's, but his just died.
What about the one that was donated?
That was a generator, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a generator.
Then I messed up because I had both.
Oh. We really like the generator.
Does a great job power washing the generator. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'll try to find you one.
Let me see if I still have it.
Can we just buy him one, like one that's good and works? It's gonna be used quite a bit, right?
We're not
No.
supposed to be spending any money, Chad.
You can use the one at
We
home.
can
How much
say-
is a pressure washer?
$500.
Yes,
A good gas
Probably
powered
somewhere
one?
in minor equipment that you can
Yeah,
buy
we'll take a
pressure
look.
washer. We'll see what we
Hey.
do.
The finance
Okay.
lady gives her blessing.
Yeah.
I didn't give my blessing. I said,
Yeah.
we'll see what we can do.
See what we can do.
All right.
I know what it's like to use on a pressure washer. It's no fun.
Well, I had a generator and I donated it.
Yeah.
And I have I had a pressure washer of the same vintage as the generator that only been used twice. Let me see if I still have it.
Okay.
Even better.
We definitely appreciate
Because
it.
it'd be over at the other house.
Oh, still at the other house, okay.
I'll go there and look at it.
Okay.
I don't remember if I sold it or what I did.
Well, and if the village isn't interested in it, I'm interested in buying it.
Okay, so thanks, Joe. Mike, I'll ask you.
Okay, so is it the consensus that a pressure washer should be purchased?
No.
I think we're gonna.
The staff is going to research.
We're gonna do some research, yeah.
Okay.
You might split it with Maria.
It's a good idea.
We got one you can have. Cost $2,000 to fix it, that's why we don't do it.
Anything else, Joe?
You were offering that to Denise, right? She wanted one?
Yep. All right, Mike, anything you want to share with the board?
Well, I think everybody has a copy of this. The agreement to permit haul waste, that's just, the haulers are supposed to sign an agreement every year to haul waste into our plant and to prove that they have insurance. So that if they, like, wreck our gate or something like that, and there's workman's compensation and all those sorts of things. Next thing under is Youngworth Tower. We had a 5-year inspection done, a DNR 5-year inspection done by Lane Tank. We had a vent that when they built the tower, the vent was legal, it was no longer legal, so we just had to put a new vent on, and that was about $9,500 that we had to do. Great Lakes TV did 15% of our system cleaned and televised. We don't have the detailed report yet, but they did not, they found one individual lateral that was cracked here on Mill Road that will have to be repaired at the owner's expense, because it's inside the property line. Our pressure reducing valves, we have them all rebuilt and tested now, so Rob and Lee can finish their pressure study, which actually it's made a difference in the village already. We found that our wells run less because the valves are supposed to open and close on demand constantly. They're just working steady. And we obviously had some that weren't working quite to what we thought they were working. So that's done. Another thing, I don't know if everyone here is aware, but it's public knowledge. We had an employee who gave he's going to be done working May 31st. He's going to work for another municipality. And so we have ad in the paper and a couple of the policy advocate and the Wisconsin Wastewater Operators Association looking for a replacement. And the grease trap compliance, we've talked about that a little bit. We have the new forms that some of the businesses have got them already, some haven't. That's about all I have.
Great Lakes was televising on Maple, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We do a section of the village at a
Right.
time.
The stakes that are in my yard, was that from them or is that from the county?
That's could be if they're blue and green, they're from us, but most of ours are on the north side of
These
the road.
are pink.
You know, that's the county. That's where
Okay,
they're
so
gonna
that's the
cut.
resurfacing, okay.
Okay, report not in the packet from Miss Amy Lorona, but I'll ask Amy, give me an update on Marina, what's happening down there?
Yeah, this Saturdays are officially our opening day, so I'm excited about that. We rolled out the new website about a week and a half ago. We immediately got some great feedback on it from customers who saw it and emailed me directly and said what an improvement it was, and I'm happy about that. I just sent out the May newsletter, and this morning I got a call from somebody who got the newsletter and realized we're opening this weekend, and they have 7 boats coming up this weekend for 2 days.
Nice.
Yes.
I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of the seasonal tenants, and they've commented on how great the office looks and all the improvements that we've done so far. So they're really looking forward to it. A great season.
Good. So we should all come down and take a look and
You should.
enjoy them, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks to all of you. Tasha, you've already talked enough tonight unless you want to add anything.
I'm good.
Okay. That's it for our report, sir.
Okay, thank you. We will skip 15, we'll do that last. Committee reports, admin has not met. Reserve has not met. Coastal byways.
Coastal Byways met last Friday. Did you get minutes for that?
No.
I don't really have much to report. It's kind of the same thing. They are still talking about getting a mobile app. It was interesting because Mr. Cuffrin was there, and he was questioning whether or not that was an affordable option, and considering whether or not they should get their website up. And Miller wanted the municipalities to collect information on the improvements that have been made, so that she can submit that information to a report she's making. And there was some discussion on the stone fences. There's a letter being drafted, and we discussed that, and Ann was going to rewrite that, and it's going to go out to the municipalities, just about how we could probably help sprucing up some of the fences in areas where there's people that would need help with that if they were elderly, or, you know, it was a seasonal property, kind of working towards getting maybe some committees to work on that, just to clean them up. But the stone fences are going to stay where they are, so that's about it.
ECECD.
You want me to go or you?
You can go.
Okay. So I had a meeting. Probably the big news out of DCEDC is that Sam Perlman is no longer with the organization. We will be working on a redraft of that position and an analysis of overall needs of the organization sometime between now and our next meeting. Also, we will be scheduling a meeting to go through some strategic planning with the organization. Since we've got some staff turnover, it's really an opportune time to examine what we're doing and why we're doing it. So, pretty productive meeting otherwise.
Any questions? Economic development has not met. Finance, we saw the fruits of Tasha's labors.
Yes.
Tasha's gonna sleep really good tonight, guys.
Can you take a deep breath now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Fire.
I was not at, never mind.
There
Yeah.
was a meeting on April 6th, minutes are in the packet. Let's see, we talked about a little bit about aging of the fleet of the equipment out there. We've pushed out the replacement from a 20-year to a 25-year, which of course increases the maintenance cost. So we had a discussion on that. 2016 budget, we ended the year $664 under budget. That'll go into the grant fund. Also, we're looking at a brush truck, and I understand the village has paid 50% of their share. And so, just let finance know at some point they're going to be knocking on the door for the other.
So, I would ask you to report back that we need to pause on the purchase of a brush truck till at least 2018. And
That's probably when it will be. But,
okay, so, and they should come and ask us before they sign any paperwork so we can make sure things are lined up financially.
What was the cost of that again?
Well, it's going to be, our share is going to be about $12,500.
Oh,
You start adding everything else up, but
And is that not in the 129,000 that we pay them throughout the year?
no.
No.
No,
That's a
capital's a
separate
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 item.
That would
item.
be fire truck reserve.
Yep.
Part of only the 200,000 that we have.
Scott, that 12.5
Don't
number,
have.
Spent it on a parking
Right.
I thought that was
Right.
like,
This is gonna be somewhere in the ballpark of 75,000 to 80,000.
okay, I thought
They're
we were,
2/3, we're 1/3.
for some reason I had in my head we were into this thing for about 60. I don't know where that's coming from, but,
I don't think so.
okay.
So is this brush truck gonna be 2017 or 2018 budget?
The order hasn't gone in, so I'm assuming it's gonna be an 18.
Have they done the specs?
No.
Okay, yeah.
Is this, just because, I'm not been around for capital purchases from the fire department.
Yep.
Is this how it normally works, or do we receive notice a year in advance and it's a budgeted item so that we can expect them to
Normally,
purchase a
normally there's
budget?
discussion about it, it becomes a budgeted item, we know about it generally a year in advance.
Okay.
When did you?
Generally.
Yeah,
April.
Well, there is a whole schedule of.
yep, and it,
Okay.
we
So if
adopted
you
this.
ask Chris Heck, he'd be happy to share that
Yeah.
with you on all of the equipment. I know some things have been pushed back.
Yep.
And, but yeah, the village is always very much aware of what's down the pipeline and how much we need to be putting away. This is a relatively small purchase, but they've always been aware in the past of when we buy something really
Okay,
big.
so you want
Okay.
Scott to inform the board members that funding probably won't be available till when?
18.
Okay.
We communicated to them that we were moving funds around in our CIP last budget go-round.
Okay.
Fire district has not met.
Has not met.
Historical society.
Minutes are in the packet.
There.
They are,
Yeah.
yeah. It was,
Yeah.
that was a little bit like pulling teeth. They thought we were getting in on all their deep, dark secrets.
How come it's not in order?
It's under S.
275.
It's under S?
275.
Oh, instead of H?
Yeah. Because it's debate historical.
Okay, well, then we either need to
275.
change it
I know.
on
Change it, put it on
this.
here, right.
Sorry.
Spring Social was the 11th. I have not heard the turnout for that. They are still talking about the barn out there. Somebody made tossed out an idea about putting a little store attached to the barn, modeled after what Bundy's store was back in the 1920s.
Cute idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's it.
Library.
The library met on May 9th. You had the minutes for that one. No, probably not, but, still looking for somebody for the Arena Fest to run the book sale. Otherwise, everything seems pretty good. The windows were fixed. They did get a librarian in Sturgeon Bay for the main office. I think I said that was from last month, the month before in April, but yeah, that's good.
And it was brought up about the water level in the, in the
Well,
pond,
that
yes.
wasn't brought up in the library because that was
Okay, it was after,
something,
okay, but,
that just came up in another report, but that was not brought up in this meeting. Frank Forford was concerned about,
Right.
about where our property would meet, the library property would meet, into where the parking lot would meet, and if there was gonna be a retaining wall, and the effect of the water runoff on all of that. And you told Ralph that it was gonna be seeded off the bank there, off the library. So,
What about the pond issue?
I got a call from Ilks the other day, said everything looked good.
So we had a citizen complaint
Yep.
that
Yeah.
that the pond was overfilled, should have been draining, And he was concerned about young children possibly falling in it because of the steepness of the bank not being able to get out.
Right.
And it was determined that the outflow was probably plugged. So my question is, has it been mitigated?
As far as I know. Because again, Dilt's called me back and said, hey, water level looks good.
Okay.
Okay.
Marina and Marina Fest.
Did not meet this month
Parks, properties, and streets.
in the packet. Page 256.
Minutes are in the packet.
Oh, correction,
Page
258,
9.
11. And Berto indicated that she will be in contact with him in the near future. Not true.
Yeah.
Yep, that's me.
That's Zeke.
That's it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Anything else in parks?
What is his?
Yep.
Why would he be assisting in the parking committee?
University of Extension does a lot of consulting and studies for municipalities as well as county level. And I happened to sit next to him at the DCECD annual dinner at work. And he mentioned to me that he understood we had some parking issues in Sister Bay. He began to explain to me that they often do those types of studies, and he came up with all kinds of things and words and phrases, and I'm like, we need to talk to you.
So we want to invite him
He
to a
obviously
meeting
had
and see
some,
what he
had
has to
some
say.
knowledge, so
Okay.
we're gonna invite him to get involved, or at least
Nice guy.
get some more knowledge.
He's a nice guy.
He's a
I
great guy.
haven't seen him.
Well, we're losing somebody on the parking committee, right? Chris is
Milligan.
moving to Arizona.
I wonder if we'll have things wrapped up before he comes off.
He's leaving July 1st.
I was leaving 31st.
Oh, I thought he was leaving before that, actually.
No,
Okay.
no,
Sorry.
only through
So
June.
that'll be another appointment via SBA for the citizen members that we didn't do.
Yeah.
Another, page 260. A paragraph starting on line 38. I don't remember this at all, that we had a 5-year plan.
Yeah, 5-year color plan.
Yeah, you guys approved at the meeting and said you were going to
It's
have a
the
conversation with
color
Joe.
plan,
Yeah.
not the, okay.
No, you were
It
going to,
was-
you're supposed to meet with Joe.
And we were giving you and Sharon permission
Oh, to go do
to
that.
go do that.
Okay.
you know,
Well,
However you,
okay.
however you decided was in the best interest of the
Okay.
village.
Okay.
Yes, yes. It just, I'm like, there was no drawing, there
Poor
was
Joe.
no plan.
You got to do it.
Said poor Joe.
Okay.
Anything else? Personnel,
You took action on it tonight.
plan commission, take action on
Also,
it. Tom and Tech has not met. SBAA,
So you heard the big news about SBAA. Chris Milligan's leaving. He did say that he's been getting some excellent applications. He's definitely set the bar on that thing, so and we're in really good shape, so hopefully we'll be okay. We do have Megan back this year. She was the assistant. Rummage sales this weekend, and the car show's the following weekend. The meeting was Thursday, May 4th.
questions?
I have a question not related. How come we don't have parking in our committee reports?
We're gonna put that under reserve.
Under reserved.
Oh, okay.
You have to reserve it first, because it's parking, and then you put it in there. Youth Center,
Youth Center, you did have minutes in the packet. We had a meeting on, the January one just got put in there, and then we had one on April 27th. It just seems like everybody seemed to agree that there's been more effort being put out than there is youths to use the center. So we just kind of decided we're done until at some time there seems to be some interest. And I don't know where it goes now. to the board, if we should just let it ride, or,
Well, as I recall, the youth center seems to ebb and wane, depending upon what families are involved in the given
Okay.
moment in time.
okay, so we'll just, at this time, I guess, wait until there is some interest. Did get the projector returned to you, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That, had to get that followed up with.
I'm on the listening.
Okay. I haven't seen it, so.
Okay, but thank
Good
you.
job,
because
It's in
I
the
may
vault, I
be-
don't know what it's supposed to go to, but it's in the vault.
It's in the
Okay.
vault, okay, that's great, thanks.
So according to your letter in the minutes,
Yeah.
it's the church group that primarily uses it?
It was, and then I did notice that that particular group is also having a youth evening night at the church, one day a month. So, that was, Derek and Kristen. But he said even those kids are not even really asking him about it, so.
So this is the same group that we give permission for, we just did again, we renew the annually to do the bonfire down on the beach?
No.
Not?
No, that's
Different
the
group.
church,
Okay,
Shepherd of the Bay.
okay, because I was thinking maybe they would integrate,
Yeah.
okay. Never mind.
Okay.
Tourism Zone Commission.
Continues to collect taxes.
Utility.
You took action on that tonight.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't meet last month,
And then comp oversight has not met.
this month.
Parking, soon to replace reserve and move up to number 2. The minutes are in the packet.
And why is it that it can't be in alphabetical order?
These are historically how they were written up, and we just sort of rearrange them as new ones come and old ones go away. And
Well, I think we can have a plan of action that could include alphabetizing them.
I would love that.
So understand the numbers may change, so parking's not gonna be number 2.
That's okay. Just a question for Zeke. Anything from Robert E. Lee on Green Bay's zoning yet?
not yet.
Why?
That'd be a question I'd have to ask Robert E. Lee.
Okay, can you call him?
I will call Robert E. Lee.
I mean, the
I thought about that
sooner-
today.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we any closer to the, you think you know what I'm gonna ask you,
Oh, okay.
to the water designation for
Delineation.
delineation?
They were out there doing the work late last week. Saw them out there.
And who do you have doing it?
Robert E. Lee.
Okay.
So we should have that back, I would imagine, sometime in
Will
the
they
week.
correspond that with the county mapping?
Once it gets recorded with DNR, then it'll get picked up by county mapping.
Okay.
Wasn't he gonna call you in advance, kind of, with before it was formal? Did he say that, or no? I can't remember if
They'll
he
give
said
us a report, but they're obligated to report those findings to the DNR.
First, okay.
Okay. Because I know that the federal wetland mapping is in the process of being redone for Door County,
Okay.
and they generally do that by aerial.
Aerial.
Yep. Yeah, so does DNR.
Right, so it's possible that
Some stuff moves.
some stuff moves.
Yep.
but we're supposed to
And
have-
so does federal then dictate over our Robert E. Lee actually on the ground?
So-
What takes?
Well, the federal is more used for flood insurance issues.
Okay,
Okay, so the DNR, in conjunction with county planning and private consulting groups, come up with the wetland delineation, and they kind of agree upon points.
So DNR does theirs by aerial mapping as well, but you can contest that by having an on-site delineation.
And then, right, and then planning would go out and
Right.
delineate it. In the case of municipality, not under county county zoning, they would hire a private firm to do it.
okay.
But they will go back and talk to the county to make sure the overlay maps match.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
When did we say our next parking meeting was, or did we not schedule it?
It was after we get the stuff back from
Okay,
Robert E. Lee.
all right.
Can you send us the information on the parking garage?
I have it as a to-do on my desk.
I will keep reminding you.
Yes, sir.
And on page 265 of the
Yeah, when they
parking-
talk, it means something.
minutes, the paragraph starting on line 7, and I think this goes back to something that Chad was, I had asked the question on if we wanted them only to really concentrate on the Dahlstrom property and the Knocker property, and then I thought, Chad, you had said that no, you think they should find pockets anywhere that we could expand the parking. Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that what you
right?
said?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, does that
Yeah, I
have?
mean, we don't need, I mean, in theory, it's great to hit a home run and have 200 stalls, but we should be looking everywhere, every nook and cranny.
So that
I mean,
last
Zeke
sentence.
is gonna offer up my yard, I'm sure,
Yep.
in one of his suggestions.
Yep.
Okay, so what page is it?
Save you cutting grass.
265.
And with different eyes, they might identify something we didn't think of.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
for ZZ's resurfacing, I asked the county, could we turn, it's not my yard, it's Jerry's yard, but could we turn that into angle stalls and then carry that down to the next house down? I've had a conversation with that property owner as well. And turns out that we don't own enough right of way to be able to do that. And that's, there's also some grade challenges there.
Okay, so how do you want page
Well,
265?
it's a
amended?
question, starting on line 10. They would, however, like to see some additional single potential parking spaces identified throughout the village. I mean, does that encompass then enough of what Chad was saying?
So lining is another one, Mill Road and,
Are you adding to me, or are you interrupting me?
sorry, both.
Well, I'm just trying to, get you now,
Okay, I'll back off.
so we can finish this.
Hey, that's a good thing. Denise is wanting to wrap things up, Zeke.
So, I mean, if it's fine with everybody, that's okay. I just didn't think that it encompassed what Chad had really said, that's all.
Yeah, I agree, it could.
So how do you want it to be worded?
Additional smaller,
And parking opportunities.
yeah,
anywhere.
just parking opportunities
Okay,
of
so
any
just
size.
Single out of there and just say, identify some additional parking opportunities.
Yeah, without relation to number of parking stalls.
Yes, Zeke?
So those opportunities would include painting of lines, and the part that I'm, I guess, questioning is we have brick pavers, and we certainly can line those pavers in order to improve some parking efficiency, but I don't want somebody to come back, oh my God, you spray painted a bunch of.
Well, I got two things with that.
Okay.
I know that Chris, the fire chief, is concerned about Mill Road, and we only have parking on one side. My question is, the parking committee is, think about moving parking to the other side of Mill Road and not this side of Mill Road?
This is where the sidewalk is.
I know, I understand. Or doing something, the rest of the statement is, or doing something to direct people here. With CHOP now, and the other restaurants now open, everybody parks right around there, and you drive down here, there's
Nothing.
24 empty spaces.
supposed to have a
Not
sign.
being utilized.
It's
But if there was a sign that would help.
Yes.
We're working on that,
The
yeah.
second thing was on Mill Road, where the brick pavers are from the old Helms property, we did that to recapture the pavers, okay, and resort them. But if you drive down there in any given day or evening, if you count the space between cars, you'll come up with between 12 and 15 additional spaces could be used if in fact
We
they
lined
were
it.
striped or lined.
Yeah, why, yeah.
So
We should
that
line
would-
them. That's
so
a
that
good
would-
idea.
And that's a simple thing to do.
You should probably be on the parking committee, Dave.
And then, the other thing was, should we also close the parking by the,
Closed.
yeah, okay, we have another closed session to talk about that.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
And there's probably a couple opportunities like that
Yeah.
around the village, if you took a look at, hey,
Yeah.
if we restripe this.
I think
pick
we're
up
all
all
open
these
to any
spaces.
ideas, that's.
Well, I mean, I think the season is basically upon us. I mean, do we really have to take that back to the parking committee, and we don't even know when we're
So
gonna have our
if
next
we-
meeting?
No, yeah, let's
If we
do
were
it.
to tell Zeke to do that,
Yeah.
you
There.
can call the county and they'll stripe it.
They're here right now.
Yeah, let's strike it. I mean,
Okay, so-
it's not like we get to make that decision at parking committee anyway, right? We just get to recommend
We'd
it.
recommend, yeah.
Okay, so who wants to make a
No,
motion?
Joe.
Yeah, no brainer. I'll make that.
And what's your motion?
That we stripe the brick pavers on Mill Road,
The old Helms property.
the old Helms property.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion?
have a question about the one-way street.
Wait,
Talk to Chad.
Hold on. We have a motion, we're gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were done with that, I'm sorry.
I'm on your side for you.
If there's any other discussion on that issue.
One quick thing, I guess,
Yeah.
before we do
Yeah.
that, should we make an area of it lined for motorcycles, mopeds, or is there enough, there's enough of that across the street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's enough.
perfect.
Okay, so it's that the brick pavers on the old Elms property on Mill Road shall be striped for parking? Is that right?
And if you want to say from Post Office Lane to the yacht club,
Mhm.
that's fine.
Mill Road.
They're pretty well identified.
Within that, we don't have to do this now, but we should make a temporary one there, 5-minute drop-off, somebody dropping a kayak off.
It's already there.
Is that already?
That's there,
Okay,
that's
cool,
there, yeah.
perfect.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Dave, you've accomplished more on parking committee than we have. Thank you.
So if you do make the one-way between, what's that little road?
Bluff
Left
side.
side?
Left, I can't remember that. Which way is it gonna be one-way?
The wrong
Yeah.
way.
I know, everybody asks me, and I'm like, well, I think it should be, and they're like, no, it should be, and I'm so, just wondering what you guys were
We're,
thinking.
we're still waiting for the county to come back and say, hey, here's how this is all gonna work. So
Okay.
until that happens.
It's on the record, I will not obey that sign, so
Okay.
there's a cop there. I think Zeke can get me for that one.
Nope.
Perfect.
Okay, we're gonna hold item 15 to just before we adjourn later on. So we're gonna go ahead and move into closed session. We'll take a break right after we make the motion. So I'd like to make a motion, we move into closed session under Wisconsin statutes 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation to which it is or likely to become involved, with Wisconsin statutes 19.851C, compensation evaluation, consideration of employment, promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation data of any public employee subject to the jurisdiction or authority of governing body, Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting unspecified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Motion by Lino.
Second?
Roll call. Lino, yes.
Berto, yes?
Bell, yes.
Kadanko, yes?
And Chris, yes?
Baker, yes.
Okay, we're now in closed session. We'll take a 10-minute recess. Thank you, everyone, for